And welcome to SEC Sports Roundtable. This is your host, Shane Bailey, back at you for our fifth edition of two-a-days. I can't even count here. So 2 more weeks of this, breaking down 2 teams from east and west of the SEC. So you guys are ready to have all the action. This week, if you're just wanting to know who we are and going to turn it off if it's not who you want to have listen to, you might have to wait a few minutes. All right, long enough. This week we're going to talk University of Florida and LSU. But first, we've got some housekeeping to get out of the way and some introductions to make, so I want to get right into those. And host Drew Young is back in the house.
Shane, good to be here. Sorry I've been absent for the last few weeks.
That's quite all right. I think school is over for you.
Partially. I'm done with the classroom stuff, but I'm actually doing my practicum, my student teaching right now. So the hard part's still to come.
And when does classes start? Next week?
No, they've already started in Metro.
Have they really?
Metro, Davidson County, Nashville.
Yeah, didn't they do Wednesday off Thursday and back on Friday?
Yeah, it makes a half day Wednesday off Thursday, then Friday. It makes so much sense.
And that other voice you hear is none other than Blair Smyly. Welcome, Blair.
Good to be back.
Glad you're
2 weeks in a row.
I know, it's a record. And it's over after this week because we know you're already out next week. Going to be catching a little golf action.
That's right.
So glad you could make this one. So get a little housekeeping out of the way for those that have stumbled upon us from somewhere, who knows where, but thank you for finding us. Lots of ways to watch this or listen to this. You can catch us on YouTube, SECSRT. That's the channel for pretty much everything I want to talk about, SECSRT. We do stream this live on Ustream. So if you're a fan of Ustream, you can go there to watch a replay of it as well. We are on iTunes at SECSRT as well as iTunes is SEC Sports Roundtable. But the Facebook and Twitter account is SECSRT. And then the website, www.secsrt.com. So you can catch a video or audio version of this podcast. Also, Stitcher Radio is another way to catch this. So get all of those ways that you can find us on a regular basis. Subscribe to those channels. Give us some great feedback. We'd love to hear from you. I've been getting some of that over the last couple of weeks, so we appreciate you guys out there telling us you like what we're doing. So we're going to try to keep it going since you like it. If you don't like it, just don't listen. That's all you got to do. There's lots of choices out there, and we're glad you chose this one. So we'll get right into some news of the week. A few things have happened that doesn't pertain to Florida and LSU. And that's basically that camp has opened up for all the teams in the SEC this week. So we are, I think from recording, if my math is correct, 25 days from the first game. Does that sound right?
What's today, the 5th?
Today is the 5th.
Yeah, the 30th is that Thursday.
So 25.
Two SEC games on that day.
25 days. You know, we're under that 4-week threshold and closely approaching 3 weeks to the first game.
Awesome.
It's excitement. And you know, you really know that it's almost here because, like I said, practice has opened up, and every team in the SEC has started some practice with, I guess, they don't have the same rules like the NFL with their collective bargaining where they can only do the first practices without pads, and they slowly build up to that. They start all out, do they not? Or?
No, they actually, the NCAA does have mandates where they got to go like shells.
Yeah,
like
and
a day or
just
two.
just helmets and shorts.
I don't think they can get into full-on contact until like the 3rd or 4th practice. So
okay, so it's almost identical to the NFL because I think that they have to have 4 practices. We were able to see some Vanderbilt football players and Coach Franklin at the Titans kickoff of open practice for the public last week. And so that made me think of that. I didn't know. And Caldwell was all excited about that. Just for those who know Vanderbilt fans that watch this and listen to the podcast, Chad was all excited that they were there. Gotta love his excitement for Vanderbilt.
He's a fool, man. That's just, I pray to God, if they ever get good, what's he going to do, man? If they really start a streak or something. Like, I've heard so many times, you know, where he's talking smack about it, and he's like, well, what bowl game did Tennessee go to last year? And I'm like, the guy can even talk smack when his team loses You know, I'm a Tennessee fan. He's a Vanderbilt fan, and he's over there ripping Tennessee because they didn't make a bowl game. I'm like, we beat y'all. I mean, it's the heads up event. We beat y'all. He's like, we were in Memphis, and I'm like, well, good. Y'all lost to a team that we beat. Whatever. I can't wait until they're good and listen to what he has to say. This is gonna be fun.
Well, we are. Any other news from the open camps? I know there's bound to be some stuff that you know from Mississippi. Mississippi Way.
The only thing that
Mullen's excited, I hear.
Yeah, he got a little fired up at the reporters. The interesting thing that Mullen did is the first 3 years there, he opened up practice to the public. Like the first 2 weeks, he always had, anywhere from like 8 to 10 practices. And this year they came out and he has all of them closed except for yesterday, which was Saturday. They did a split practice, so even you didn't really get to see the full. They kind of split it up, and so they had a morning and an afternoon. And but he got a little hot after the first day with the reporters because the reporters have been shut out as well, so they got to get all their information from him. And he's always had
That's
a policy.
almost a Spurrier move to me.
Well, most teams do it. It's kind of interesting. Mullen was probably in the last 3 years, and that was probably to drum up interest and enthusiasm and try to get fan base behind you, when you start out at Mississippi State 3 years ago. But I think now, I think with Tyler Russell and maybe some different concepts on offense and stuff, I think he's just closing it off. I think he's trying to just control it. But he got a little bit hot at the guys because they asked him about injuries, and he supposedly has a policy about injuries. But like any head coach that controls everything, kind of voices about injuries whenever he wants to talk about it.
Yeah.
So he kind of blew up at him and threatened to leave the room. And
he's a little stressed. It seems like he's
awesome.
A little stressed to start the season.
I was fired up, man. I sent my cousin a text and said that Mullen's ticked off after the first game. So after the first practice. So it's only a good sign,
That could be a bad sign right there.
Nah. I think
you like it?
I think
he
was pre-angry. That's what one of the reporters said. He goes, I could tell that he was pre-angry before he came in, and then when we asked him about and it was all about. It was kind of funny because one of the guys asked about 2 injured players, and Mullen answered him, and then said, we have a policy, we don't talk about injured players, and the guy responded, so they're injured, and that kind of set him off, and it was fun stuff. But
it's like, I guess I'm going to generally side on the coach there, and I understand that people want information, but those reporters, they can just be just for instance, the local here in Nashville, you've got a lot of people know him. Paul Kaharski covers AFC South football and some other stuff for ESPN, and he was so mad when people wouldn't give him information about Kenny Britt's DUI. And of course, as a Titans fan, I want to be done with it. Just sweep it under the rug. It's finished. Suspend him, whatever. Let's not talk about it. But the media want to talk about it and talk about it and talk about it and talk about it, and just over and over and over again. That's all they want to do. And I'm definitely on the side of I would much rather talk about what's happened on the field than off the field.
And I think from Mullen's standpoint, I think he feels this is the best team that he's had there, and so he's just going to control it a little bit. So it was kind of interesting.
I'm glad to get him fired up down there.
Oh yeah, man.
Did it
keep them on their toes?
Did it get the state fans fired up?
Fans, it's funny because you really can't tell because I thought it was great. It was funny because you saw like 15 beat guys that were all of a sudden basically they were scrambling because, now you have it all video. So, all those guys got their phones and stuff, and so they just post video of their press conferences now, and they'll just post them to their blogs or whatever.
Right.
So it all went video, so you could actually see. It wasn't just audio, so you could actually see Mullen get up and go to the other side and kind of chastise him a little bit, and you could see him kind of scrambling to not let him get out of the room so they could actually ask other questions.
So there's no taking things out of context that way.
Nah. Was he blew up. It was probably a little bit, but I think he obviously had that on as a mission when he got in there, that because he's got about 3 guys that I know that are going to ask about, and if you're a Mississippi State fan, you want to know what Nico Whitley and Tobias Smith and some of the other guys were doing. So it's fun.
And on your side of the state of Tennessee, Wes Rucker's out there putting out pictures of you guys.
Yeah, I mean, it's just haven't heard a lot of stuff that's going on in practices. I mean, because they really haven't gotten into it. Other than a couple of the newcomers, you've got Daniel McCullers, who has been called Mount McCullers and Big Mac. I mean, the guy is literally like 6'8", 6'9", 375, and he's not sloppy. He's not what's the Alabama's Mount Cody. He's not him like just sloppy or anything like that. But I'll go ahead and tell you right now, if I could I'd take Mount Cody over him right now just for his production. But I mean, he's huge. So you're taking pictures of guys that are 6'1", 275, and they look like little kids. They look like middle schoolers when they're lined up beside him. And then the other one that you keep hearing about is Cordero Patterson, the junior college transfer, number 1 junior college player last year, and he's supposed to be a beast. I mean, he's just he ran he got on the message boards, late last year. He ran a 10.32 100-meter dash at 6'4", 230 pounds. So, I mean, now here's to put this in perspective. Usain Bolt ran like a 10.09 to win his preliminary, and that's the fastest man in the world. And so he's 2/10 of a second, about 2.5 tenths of a second slower, which is going to be a couple steps back. Yeah. But I mean, he would have beat like the Chinese Olympian. In that, and he's 6'4", 230. So I think everybody's excited about those
now, are
guys.
y'all at Milligan yet, or do y'all start on campus? Aren't y'all going to the school?
They're going away, but I don't know if they've made that move yet. But no, I mean, 25 days away from the first game, so 26 days away from probably Derek Dooley's biggest game of his career. So hopefully they've got their head on right and it seems like it. I mean, I know the leaders are. I know y'all talked about this a little bit last week, but the leaders of the team, they're keeping their head straight and in the computer lab and studying film and not doing any extracurriculars or anything like that.
Let's talk about that since you brought that up. They've been. I would think they're working on glass work, learning how to blow glass to try to fix all that. That's what he was doing, right? He was breaking that glass so he could melt it down to learn how to make new things out of it.
No,
it was chemistry.
Yeah, he's such a bad kid. I mean, have you heard the story about him and some friends were at their apartment, and there was a car parked in a spot that it's always like there's like 2 or 3 visitor spots, and so this car always parks there, and so they got mad because like none of their friends can come visit. There's only 2 spots, and this car always takes it. So they decide, they've probably been drinking a little bit, and they decide we're going to go move that car. So they get about 4 or 5 guys, and they get on each side of it, and they're trying to pick the car up, and the bumper snaps off in their hands, and they throw they have to throw the bumper away. Well, no, wait a second. That wasn't Tyler Bray. That was me and some of my friends in college. And I've turned out to be a pretty good guy, and I would say that I'm not the worst person in the world. So. They're college kids. Was it a good decision? No. Do I think you could make a lot worse? I think it's much worse to go out and knock up some random girl, which I'm sure there's plenty of Tennessee players that have done that in other schools. Or is that a better decision than to go out and drink and drive like some of the other schools? I mean, I think is it a big deal? Yes, you don't want your quarterback making decisions like that. But
pot brownies.
Yeah, I mean, I just, once again, it goes back to I would much rather talk about what's happening on the field. What are we going to do? Let's keep talking about it. I mean, do you kick him off the team? I mean, that's not going to happen. Do you suspend him for a game? That's clearly not going to happen. Yeah. So, I mean, that's it. It's just a kid being a kid. And is it stupid? Yes. And if he does 5 more things like this, would I still say let him play? Yeah, probably. Now, if he goes out there and rob somebody or murder somebody, then yeah, probably should be kicked off the team. That's a big deal. But I think it's just the media blowing stuff out of proportion.
Well, yeah.
Not saying that what he did wasn't stupid. I'm just saying, like I use this analogy. Mickey Mantle, y'all like Mickey Mantle, right? He's a good guy. I mean, this was a national hero. If the media coverage had been big back then, I mean, Mickey Mantle was a drunk. I mean, he was an absolute just fool. I mean, he would run his car into restaurants. I mean, like just ridiculous stuff. If the media had been around, he'd have been chastised and kicked out of Major League Baseball. Instead, we're just going, that's just the Mick, Because in time, it's just you're going to get over it, and we'll see. I mean, now, that being said, am I a little concerned that Tyler Bray doesn't always make the best decisions? I don't think he was prepared for that Kentucky game. Now, having said that, the rumors are he was sick, and he had, his thumb was still messed up. But I don't like the way they're talking, like, oh, we don't care about going to a bowl game. I mean, that's not what you want to hear about out of your quarterback. I'm much more concerned about that than him throwing bottles.
So now do you think that it was sick or hungover?
What?
Since he likes to drink beer in the middle of the day.
No, I think they had just some major chemistry stuff going on. I mean, I think they had, I think it was pretty evident that the senior leadership at the time was kind of ticked off at the young guys that didn't really care, and I think that kind of filtrated through the system. But I think that's what Tennessee fans still have in their mind, because it's the last time you've seen them play. And so until you get 26 days from now and get NC State and do something on the field, then all this kind of, well, he shouldn't be doing that because he wasn't that mature, and then now this maturity thing is coming back up again.
I think you gotta have an identity, and the problem with Tennessee last year was they didn't have an identity. You got to do, if you're going to win, there's about 3 different ways you can do it. One, you can be highly disciplined, have good character kids that really know what they're doing and they want to win. That'd be like I would say like a Boise State team or like Stanford, the way they play. I don't think they have as much talent. Or you can go to the way Lane Kiffin's doing it at USC, and right. Where you have just a ton of talent. You've got knuckleheads, but they're really talented. Or 3, you can do it the way Alabama and LSU do it, where it's kind of a mixture of both. They're very disciplined, but they're also very talented, and that's what you want to get to. But I think Tennessee had those kids that were still around from the Philip Fulmer era that really wanted to win, like the Austin Johnsons, who weren't the most talented player, but they were real disciplined. And then you had the young guys that Kiffin brought in, and some that Dooley's brought in, where they're real talented and they think the world revolves around them because they're 19 years old, 20 years old, and that's just the way their life is. And I don't think when you put hard work in for 4 or 5 years, you don't want some idiot kid who doesn't care. I mean, it's just going to rub you the wrong way. And not to say that you're better off if you got all these, prima donnas, but you probably are winning-wise. Yeah. So we'll see what it comes. I mean, they can't afford – they lose this year, and then – their coach is gone, and you got to start all over again. So it's kind of, put up or shut up time.
All right. Well, that was a road I wasn't expecting to go down so quickly. Glad for your insight there, Drew Young.
Oh, don't ask me about Tennessee if you don't want some Tennessee comment.
Well, from the Kentucky side of things, and I guess we'll just finish with that, and then we'll get into our 2 teams, Kentucky. And since we're all fans of those programs, we'll give them a little more props. But Kentucky's faced another big challenge. If the season's not going to be hard enough as it is, Marcus Caffey was deemed ineligible. He was, scheduled to be one of the starting cornerbacks. So, on a defense that already has issues.
A secondary that still has issues.
We talked about last.
Have those guys back, the like a Winston guy or something like
that.
He's gone, and what about the linebacker?
Man, that's the thing.
Danny Trevathan, they're both gone.
Last year Kentucky couldn't score, and they just bled to death on defense because they had 2 guys that made like 1,400 tackles apiece. But
are they the worst team in the SEC? Is Kentucky the worst team in the SEC?
Yeah.
Them and Ole Miss are about the same.
They're 13.
Because Ole Miss just doesn't have players.
I'll give Ole Miss.
Think Ole Miss behind them?
Yeah. If you look at what they each have and bring back to the table, I would still put Ole Miss slightly below them, but it's a race to the bottom right now for those 2 teams, and that's another coach that's going to have to win. He's got the AD and everybody on his side, but he's going to have to get some wins because we talked. I don't know if you listened to the podcast or not, but Kentucky's having some trouble selling tickets, and that's the first sign that a coach is really in trouble that year is when you start having trouble filling up seats. So.
Sure.
So, that for a Kentucky fan, you hate seeing more woes on a side of the field that's going to be suspect anyway. So, academics is an issue across every school in the SEC, but you just hate it when it's your main players. You would think that, they would take some lessons from Hugh Freeze down there and get some tutors for these guys and make sure they're able to pass these classes. Because as a coach how smart your kids are. I mean, do you not?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, you're going to know, and so if you run that risk, you need to make sure there's some extra weight there. But that's neither here nor there.
And believe me, these big time programs, the academic centers and stuff that they have, they basically got to try their best not to. Yeah,
you have to work.
Grades.
You have to work harder to not get your grades than work to get your grades.
I mean, you just got to be able to get in there and take advantage of all the resources and, get it done.
Well, I hate seeing that for Kentucky, but we're here to do two-a-days, and so this week we'll go stay in the East and we'll start there because Florida is the team up at bat, so to speak, for this year's SEC preview session, and so I guess we'll start off with some news from those guys because Blair, you were filling us in. Won't you talk about Hill and his troubles that he brings from? He didn't come from Miami, did he?
No, well, he was down there. I guess the Nevin Shapiro scandal in Miami has thrown its web around a lot of people. But Aubrey Hill, who was the wide receivers coach at Florida, actually resigned this week, and he was referenced in a lot of that scandal that was down there. So it had kind of been on the radar of, I think, Florida people to kind of see whatever came about that. So, but I did see today where they have replaced him with the grad assistant that Peace brought over from Boise State, and his name is I've actually lost his name for a second, but he is going to take his place. But that's just a little bit of a hiccup. I mean, I think it was the day or two before camp started that your wide receiver coach is no longer there, and you kind of got to make it up as you go from that standpoint.
And I'm looking at the media guide because he's still listed. I mean, he is a Florida guy. He played at Florida in the mid '90s and was a team captain as a senior in '94. So I mean, you look at those years. So he's had a long history at Florida. 04. So that means he started probably in '90. So 20 years basically at Florida. 22 or so, I would guess. That's probably a big setback for the Florida nation, just because he's been such a staple there for the university. He's been with the national, 3 national championship teams in? Is that right? Florida has 3?
Yeah, since then, yeah.
One was
96, and then the two with Tebow.
Yeah.
So he was probably a part of all 3 of those national championships.
Look at that. You're giving Tebow one when Chris Leak was the starting quarterback.
He played his dual role. That's why the Jets are going to win the Super Bowl this year, because he's going to take over at the 10-yard line and win games.
No, he's the punt protector, so I'm sure he's going to score about 5 or 6 touchdowns as a punt protector this year.
Well, we're going off a rat hole, but Matt Sims is going to be the quarterback there. Did you hear how good a camp he's having? That's what they're saying.
Lord,
Sims can spin it. That's what they said the whole time, and he's just pass.
Since we're off topic, I did like what Eli Manning said. Told David Carr he needed to take off his jersey and do some sprints because Tebow had his shirt off, and
really?
All the newspapers in New York basically covered him running his chiseled body or whatever.
He was jacked, man.
He's 251 pounds, dude.
He was
crazy.
jacked.
Who?
But
Tebow.
He's 251?
251, man. It's all it did was show this
what
Tebow
is he, 6'3"?
Yeah, man. He's a beast.
He is just ripped.
that's why
that's almost like last week's title all over again.
Yeah.
Had his shirt off and was pretty ripped.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it was
true.
It was pretty funny, but Eli Manning, they asked what they thought about the Jets kind of getting all the pub since they're the Super Bowl, and he's like, well, I tried to tell David Carr he needed to take his shirt off and go do some sprints. It was kind of funny.
Well, let's talk about Florida's on-the-field issues. Are there any?
The first thing that pops up to me on Florida, there's a quote in here that, and if you've listened to anything, I think in media days that Muschamp talked about was toughness. And, this quote from an opposing assistant coach was they were maybe the fastest team that we played against, but I don't think they were the toughest. I think they had some issues between some players and the coaches on the offensive side of the ball. And, one of the key stats was they got outscored in the fourth quarter by the largest point margin of anybody in the SEC last year by almost double. Wow. And so, it was something like 52 points they were outscored in the fourth quarter. And for Florida, I think you're still going to have the offensive woes or the unanswered questions with 2 quarterbacks that in Driscoll and Brissett that you've got to deal with. really a lack of running back and even wide receiver playmakers. And you're going to have a defense, I think, that's going to be a lot stronger. So I think it starts with the offense and kind of getting that settled in, and that's where I really see the biggest thing. I think that defensively they'll be really good.
Well, I was going to say defense was never their problem. I think they were returning 10 of 12 starters. Right. They were a team that ranked in the top.
If they play 12.
They might try.
If they put 12 on the field, that's going to be tough.
That Tennessee does that.
10 of 11 starters, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, and I just noticed this. One of their projected starters, Michael Taylor, linebacker, was Tennessee commit and decommitted right at the last minute. So I hope he does horribly. No, I think you're right, Blair. I think the tough thing last year was it's just the change, having to go through so much change, and you have such an identity with Urban Meyer there, and you're winning national championships, and you're running a spread, and you're really running an exact kind of offense that we're running the spread, Urban Meyer's offense. And then you kind of decide we're bringing in Will Muschamp. We're going to bring in Charlie Weiss. We're going to totally switch to a pro style. And we talked about this ad nauseum last year about how it's hard to run a pro style offense when you have, the wrong pieces. It's like trying to play checkers with chess pieces or vice versa or whatever. So couldn't really do that. So this year they've got a new offensive coordinator coming from Boise State, and they want to run Boise State's offense. And good grief, talk about something else that's tough to do. I mean, Boise State runs so many different formations, and they're just they are good because everybody knows what they're supposed to do. And they had a guy like Kellen Moore? Yeah, Kellen Moore was their quarterback, and he's probably one of the smartest quarterbacks in the country the last few years. So it's going to be difficult, and you're relying on a sophomore quarterback, and you really don't know who you're going to play. I think if there's any school that has shown they can play, two quarterbacks and be successful, the only times I really remember that being successful is Spurrier back in the 90s and the early 2000s. So, I mean, it might work at Florida. But, I mean, they've got so much talent. I mean, we're talking about the last 3 or 4 years, top 5 in the nation recruiting every year. So all these guys are 4-star, 5-star players that have just kind of been waiting their turn or just kind of learning on the fly. So I think their offensive line is going to be strong. If one of the quarterbacks can kind of take the reins, which they both had good springs, did much at all last year during the year, and they've got the Mike Gillislee kid who's a little bit bigger than what they've been running. I would doubt he's going to be as fast as the running backs they've had in the past in Rainey and Demps. I was about to say Dempsey and Raines. Rainey and Demps. But he's supposed to be a little bit more of a bruiser, and they've got a good offensive line. And they got Trey Burton, who scores in so many different ways. I mean, I guarantee you they get close to that goal line, they can put him in at quarterback and just run that Tebow package, and he can score. So I think on offense they'll be fine. And then their strong point is defense. I mean, think how good they'd be if Powell didn't get hurt in the spring.
Yeah.
So they're returning 9 out of 12 or 9 out of 11 as we like to say in football. But they're going to be good on defense, and who knows? I can't wait to go through the schedule. I might make them 11-1 in my SEC East champs again.
Well, yeah. You and Phil Steele will have them in high. I mean, Phil Steele basically says that he's their sleeper team in the East and has a really good shot to win the SEC East. And you're right, it's going to come down to their defense because they were ranked probably top 5 in the country last year in defense. I mean, if you look at their issues, it was not keeping the other team from scoring. It was them putting points on the board.
Well, I mean, talent-wise, the only team that really can match up with them in the East, I think, from talent-wise, top to bottom,
South Carolina.
Well, I think Georgia, talent-wise, but all their players are suspended for half the year.
Right. 7. So we didn't even cover that in the news. 7 of their 14, 7 starters, potential starters. So 7 of 22. Yeah. I mean, that's almost a third of your team is going to be either out for the whole season because they were let go, or at least out 2 to 3 games. That's a big chunk of your players.
Yeah, and not to get off topic too much, but, man, you talk about a team that needed Silas Redd from Penn State to transfer to them. USC was probably up there in the top 2 or 3, but Georgia, that's exactly who needed him the most.
Yeah.
Talk about finding a way to – sorry, there's a fly on me. Talk about a way to really just ease the sting of losing one of the top running backs to get a running back that's probably better than Kroll right now. But that obviously didn't happen. So good for the SEC, bad for Georgia.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. But it's still on topic because we're talking about the East and Florida's troubles. They're going to have to get through both Georgia and South Carolina to be an East champion. And so
and
I think the kicker for Florida that jumped out to me was the first part of the schedule. I know we'll get into it and predict later on, but I mean, going to Texas A&M as their first SEC game is going to be an electric atmosphere,
and that's then Texas A&M's first game,
right?
First home game, period.
Yeah, and it's their first introduction. It's just like Georgia going to Missouri that second week. I mean, those are going to be big gains because they want. It's just going to be a tough environment. Then to kick it off, we talked about Tennessee and how they need to get off on a good start with NC State, and then obviously host Florida. So you're thinking if you slip up against NC State, you got to win the Florida game or vice versa. But now you're looking at a Florida team that's going to be coming in back off of that going into Knoxville. I mean, you lose that Texas A&M game, you got a game where you could have Dooley and Muschamp that need a win as a desperate of a need as possible. I just think it's I think it's going to be an interesting thing to look at because those are two tough games to start off the road with guys that you don't really have settled in on a quarterback standpoint.
Well, I think something, it can work for you and against you is you look at Will Muschamp. 3 years ago, I mean, he's the hottest commodity in all of, college coaching because look at his enthusiasm, man. We love Muschamp. He's so pumped up, and I love the way he acts on the sideline. He gets into it. Then they start losing a little bit, and you're like, God, he's such a baby. Look how, man, he's going to have a heart attack. That guy's an idiot.
He's actually going to hit that ref.
Yeah. So it's all about momentum. If they're doing good, I really do, and I think they play off that. If they're doing good, then Florida can win a lot of games. If they start off bad, you're exactly right. This season could tank. And we talk about people on the hot seat. We talk about Derek Dooley. I'm telling you, and Will Muschamp, if he has let's say they have a 6-6 season, then I could see him being a 2 and done. Now, I'm not ready to say that he's on the hot seat or anything, but I'm telling you, you go 7-6 and 6-7 or something like that at Florida in 2 years, and if you think you have a chance to go pull somebody in,
but see, I think their schedule sets up to where
it's a lot better than last year.
Yeah, it can help you. It could be one to kind of vault you into a really great year, or it could actually stumble you into catch-up mode after that first part of the year. I mean, they get through those first 4 games, and then they got a pretty meaty part of the schedule there in the middle, and then the last is pretty easy.
Let's go on and just go through that then, because I think we're at that point. Unless there's something else we want to add about either side of the ball before we start looking at this, because you're right. It's a spiral that's waiting to happen for Florida, and can they spiral out of control or not? It's a question. Everybody, I think, is going to give them that first game. They're going to win that one, right?
Yeah, I got them a win.
And that's Bowling Green. They're hosting that. But then, like you mentioned, they travel that second week of the season to play Texas A&M at A&M. I don't remember. I have to pull it up. That's a night game. Isn't that what we determined last time? A 7?
That's the game that I think I think they both play at they're a little bit off schedule because the night game is Washington and LSU. Mississippi State plays Auburn at 11, and then I think either Missouri, Georgia.
I'll pull it up real fast.
They're like 3:30 and 5 or something. I think something like that.
I have no idea what time it is. Regardless, I'll go ahead and say I think they beat Texas A&M.
It's a 3:30 kickoff Eastern, so it's
okay. It'll be that CBS.
Well, it's ESPN game.
Okay. Yeah, CBS doesn't start until
week 3.
Yeah, week 3. It usually starts with a Tennessee-Florida game in the past. I don't know if it will this year.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's the first time ever.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah, we talked about that last week.
What's the game?
Alabama, Arkansas.
Oh, well, that's not quite as good as Tennessee-Florida, but whatever. Well, regardless, I'll go ahead and give them a win in that Texas A&M game. I think they get it done. I'm
actually leaning more towards possibly a loss because I think if you have Georgia going to Missouri, I think Missouri's going to have a little bit. I think it's going to be a great atmosphere, but it's Missouri, and I don't think they're going to have it. Texas A&M's atmosphere. I think it's their opportunity to kind of show that they're there. And it's you're talking about 85, 90. I mean, it's a true SEC atmosphere.
Bonfire and kissing some women, man.
So I'm going to lean more towards Texas A&M on that one.
Yeah, they start off with A&M starts off with La Tech, so they've got a pretty easy go that first week as well. And I'm leaning to like you. I think that place is going to be electric.
Yeah.
If you look at the atmosphere at Aggie Stadium, is it Aggie Stadium? Is that what they call it?
Sure.
Yeah.
We'll call it Aggie Stadium.
College Station.
Kyle Field, right? Isn't it Kyle Field?
I have no idea.
In College Station, Aggie Field at College Station.
I think it's Kyle Field.
Either,
but anyway, that's all right.
Wherever the Aggies might play, we'll learn soon enough.
Yeah. Sorry, Texas A&M fans.
Yeah, but they're passionate about football. Missouri's not necessarily known for having just rabid college football fans. The Aggies are, as far as I would put them close to being on par with a lot of SEC teams in that. So it's going to be a very tough place to play. A&M is going to come in like they've got something really to prove. They had a disappointing year last year, and there's a lot of things that to me are adding up to go to A&M's favor. So I'm going to give them a loss as well. I think A&M's going to pull off. I don't know who's favored in that game, if they're even going to have odds out on that one yet. But I think that they're going to have a loss as well. So I think they'll start off 1-1, and then head into week 3 up to Knoxville.
And what do you think on that one, Shane?
I think Tennessee's going to beat them, and that pains me to say Tennessee's going to win a game. But what do you think? Do you think Tennessee can beat them?
Man, I am scared. When are we doing Tennessee two-a-days? When is that scheduled?
Either we
still in the air. Still
next week or the week after.
Okay, I'm scared to do my prediction with Tennessee because I'm not a Chad Caldwell where I'm tweeting every 5 seconds. But man, I want to be optimistic, and of course I'm going to give Tennessee a win in that one. So that's a loss for Florida. Now, Tennessee's lost about the last 6 in a row to them or something.
Yeah.
So I would say that if your smart money would be to pick Florida, and if y'all both said Florida's going to win this, but I don't know. I mean, I think that I'm just going to, for the fact that it's at Knoxville, and I think that, it's going to be offense versus defense. I think Tennessee is pretty solid on offense, shaky on defense, and Florida's very, very solid on defense and shaky on offense. And last year, I think if Justin Hunter hadn't have gone out, that's a completely different game. And I don't know that Florida offensively is going to be as good as they were last year. And I think Tennessee's going to be better offensively. So I'll give, just for the home crowd, I'm going to give Tennessee the win. So Florida would be 2-1 now.
I'm actually going to go with the W for Florida on that one. And it's only because I think they're going to split those 2 games is what my thinking is for a prediction for the schedule. So I just think Texas A&M is going to be an environment, but I could totally see them winning there and then coming back to Tennessee and getting beat. I think the Tennessee-Florida game is a complete freaking toss-up.
Yeah.
And Florida can run out of there with 2 losses very quickly on both of those games. But just for what I'm trying to predict here, I'm going to go with the split and say that they win.
Well, and I think we're all going to say the next game against Kentucky at home, that's a win for Florida, right?
Yeah, that's the one that Shane picked as a win for Kentucky.
You got Kentucky winning that game.
Here's why I think
do it. I mean,
here's where I think that, and that's why I picked Tennessee. I've got to set it up this way. I think that they're going to win that first game at Bowling Green, and then they're going to go on a spiral because if they lose at A&M and at Tennessee, they're a team in the East with their back against the wall.
So you got them losing to Kentucky.
And then I got them losing to Kentucky.
I like it. I like it. And this is going to be fun. The other team that we're talking about, LSU, I don't see them. I mean, they got them at home, but I've got a win for LSU there.
Yeah, I got a dub. Yeah.
And what about you, Shane? You got them going 1-4?
I do.
All right, I like it, man. I can't wait. Dude, you got Muschamp fired in week 5.
Add Vanderbilt. I think they take care of business there. Yeah, Vanderbilt's always played them tough.
They do. I mean, it's always close, but it doesn't seem like Vanderbilt's ever going to win that game.
Yeah.
But I've got Florida winning that game as well.
If they're going to have to stop the bleeding at some point. You can't just go undefeated or lose every game in the SEC unless you're an old Vanderbilt, Kentucky, or Ole Miss team.
And see, and I'm real high on South Carolina, just because I think Marcus Lattimore is going to be running the ball, and I think with what Connor Shaw brings, just this flat stability of that position that they haven't had. Man, I'm gonna chalk up an L. I think South Carolina gets it done.
You got South Carolina winning that game?
Yep.
I agree. I think South Carolina is the team to beat in the East. And when you go through and look at that game, and I'd have to go back and look, but I think we all picked South Carolina to beat Florida in that game. So why would I turn around and change it now?
I'm going to go ahead and just be opposite of you guys. I'm going to say Florida wins that game, kind of like Blair's thought to it. I think it's more likely that they beat Texas A&M and Tennessee and then lose to South Carolina. But, I mean, since we've got to be so particular about this, and I want to get my prediction on their total number of wins closer rather they beat that team.
Right.
I just think they got them at home. I think that they're going to be up for that game. You know, anytime Spurrier's back at the Swamp, that crowd's going to be just loud and ecstatic, and hopefully, at that point,
that's a good point.
But they're going to be. I mean, Florida's up for every game. It doesn't matter where they're at. I mean, that's one of the hardest. I mean, if not the hardest place to play in the country. Now, everybody says LSU had a night game and all that, but I'm telling you, just on a regular basis, Florida. That's scary, man. Do you remember? Doesn't that a bad feeling like when Mississippi State or something's playing that, and you come back from commercial and you see that big orange, Gator sign, and you're just like, damn, man, we're in Florida. This is just going to be a hard game.
My good buddy, when they used to have, now they actually have the visitors section, visitor fans behind the visitors bench, but that was just recently within the last 5 years that they made that change. But my buddy Brad that played at Auburn said that was by far the most intimidating place that they ever went. And he said, and they were so close to your bench because they're just sitting on top of you. He's like, if you ever acknowledged them, you were done. I mean, if you ever acknowledged anybody screaming at you, they just hammer you. And he said they just threw stuff. He said it was just unbelievable.
Well, they follow that up with the cocktail party in Jacksonville
I think
Georgia.
They win that one. I think kind of the same thing. I think they either beat South Carolina, lose to Georgia, or vice versa. And I'm picking them to lose South Carolina, then come back and be a little bit prepared.
I'll be the exact opposite. I think Georgia's I think they got a lot of talent, and I think that Georgia.
I figured Georgia's going to be without about 12 players by then. Because it's about another 60 days. I figured they'd have another.
See, I think
4 or 5
that maybe the opposite. They might finally be getting their players back. So I'm going to go ahead and give Florida a loss there. What are you saying, Shane?
I'm like you. I have to look at total wins at some point in this. Otherwise, I want to have them losing every game.
You're gonna have them 2-6 if you have them losing this one.
I was looking through that. Well, they have a stretch here that's going to give you a couple more wins, but I think they're going to have to win one of these two against South Carolina or Georgia. So I'm going to have to give them that win to get them at 500.
Yeah, and then the next game's Missouri. They got Missouri at home.
Yeah,
I've got them winning this one.
Yeah, and I got to win in the next two.
Yeah, both of those, obviously against Louisiana.
Do you think Missouri is a win or a loss?
I just, once again, home game. I'm going to go ahead and take them at home right there.
Yeah.
And so
we said Louisiana, Lafayette, and Jacksonville State are both wins, but then they're at Florida State, and that's a top 5 team in the country. Is that
top 10 at least? Yeah. I think they're 7th in the coaches poll or something, but.
That's something else we never talked about. That was news.
It's a difference. Poll. I mean, do y'all think they're going to be more of an 8-4 team or a 9-3 team?
Are we talking about Florida or
Florida?
Right now, I've got them at 6-6, so I'm nowhere close to that.
Yeah, so you got them 6, and so you've got them losing that Florida State game.
Yeah,
so you've got them at 6-6.
Because if you're saying which one of those two teams can contend for a national championship, Florida State. I mean, they're a team that's returning a ton of players, and Jimbo's got those guys playing a different level of ball game. He's recruiting like a madman down there in Florida.
I'm going to go ahead and give them a loss there just to put them at 8-4.
Yeah, that's
I think that's a smart thing to put them at, a smart number, and
I think they could be.
That's a tough game. That's at Florida State. You're exactly right. I like what Jimbo Fisher has them doing at Florida State, and that's another team that's just hot recruiting, and they'll have a lot to play for.
And it's a team that is way more talented to be than to be 9-4 like they were last year.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got
and they didn't have they're not losing a lot this year. I don't think they lost a whole lot.
I mean, so yeah, I mean, I could see. I think Florida State could be one of those teams that sneaks into the second team in the country to get into it.
And I could be off base because everybody knows if they've already listened this far into the podcast how great I am with numbers. But I think they're returning 56 juniors and seniors on this squad. Florida State.
Yeah.
And that's a ton of upperclassmen to come in to play. So, and last year's game was a met. Didn't Florida State end up winning that one? That was close all the way up to like midway through the third quarter. That was a crazy game, was it not?
Yeah. Because it's rainy and stuff, if I remember correctly. Wasn't a very good surface to play on.
So that obviously, Shane, their over under Vegas total is 8 wins, and you have them at 6-6. So clearly, you've got them at the under, which I think is not a bad bet. So Blair, me and you both have them at 8-4.
Yeah.
I would, if I had to bet on this. If I had to bet on it, I'd say under is more likely.
Yeah,
that's probably what I would take. But I think it's a good number. So,
I think the uncertainty at quarterback, we just don't know, and then what they're going to be able to do. I mean, if DeBose is going to be able to be a legit receiver on the outside, and Gillespie, if he can get it going, and then there's Trey Burton, who's doing everything. I mean, offensively, I think they got the ability to do it, but you haven't really seen it, and they struggled mightily last year. So
yeah,
and you're looking at, basically for some of these, it's not going to matter for the quarterbacks because they're both sophomores.
Yeah,
but they would have had a separate offensive coordinator for both seasons now with Brent Pease coming in, and for some of the players, this is their third offensive coordinator in 3 years for some of those position players, and you're right, each offense is going to be different. There's a lot of change.
I'm interested to see because they changed their strength and conditioning to this whole toughness factor. Muschampe's one of those guys that I wouldn't consider is not a tough guy. I would consider him a tough guy. So I'm pretty sure that's been a big emphasis over the summer, and they really aren't being counted. I mean, they could be some type of a surprise team. But it's really Georgia and South Carolina's division is what everybody's predicting. So could I see them going and, if they go to Texas A&M and to Tennessee and win, it sets them up to roll into, with Baton Rouge. Well, not Baton Rouge, but they come to LSU. LSU comes to them.
If they win those, they're coming into LSU 4-0 because they're going to beat Kentucky.
Right.
And so my prediction's way off base.
And then they got a shot to get to that mark of 9-3 or a 10-2 and surprise the division. But.
Well, and if you start off 4-1 with LSU, now all of a sudden that completely changes everything because they're going to win at Vanderbilt. At that point, the South Carolina game and Georgia game, they're going to split one of those two. So now you're at 7-2 or 6-2, and then you got what?
It's crazy, man. Yeah. Everybody's got to. Somebody's got to win. Somebody's got to lose.
Exactly.
It's just crazy.
So what? LSU, is that the other one we're talking about?
It is.
LSU. I'm tired of talking about Florida. Anybody else, man? I get tired of Florida. I hate Florida. Just kidding, Florida fans.
I did see where on Twitter last night where some girls at Tennessee were on Florida's campus and they were draping the statues of the Gators and they look like Tennessee. What are the little? They're like the little blankets that have arms or whatever. What are they called?
The Snuggies or something?
Snuggies. They had like Tennessee Snuggies that they were actually putting over and taking photos on campus, which I thought was pretty
smart,
pretty interesting. So that's this little side note for you, Tennessee.
Good job, girls. Keep it up.
I wonder if that's the same girls that were out recruiting for Tennessee.
It's the Orange Pride, baby.
They were not. They were not nearly attractive enough to be recruiting for anybody. So.
That's why they go to Tennessee.
Yeah. They look like one of them. They look like some of those East Tennessee Hill girls. So, anyway, LSU, huh?
Yeah, LSU, man. I think that the question is, can they win the West? I mean, they're going to be one of those teams. I hate to say that they were under the radar last year, but I don't think anybody expected them to be as good as they were. Looking at their results from last year, man, the unbelievable thing is the closest game they had besides that Alabama game was the Mississippi State game. Yeah. It was 19-6, and I think that game was a little. What was it at halftime? Was it a close game at halftime?
Yeah, it was actually 12-6 going into the fourth. But
Yeah.
State couldn't go
Yeah, I
more
remember
than 4
watching
yards.
that. Yeah, it was just one of those things
Because
where
after the
it was
Auburn
close.
loss.
It was close, but you
Yeah.
just knew that they
Yeah.
were going to win. So, but other than that, I mean, they won every game by like 20 points. So. It was one of those things where LSU was better than I thought they would be last year. I think obviously they have a chance to be more explosive on offense, and that's hard to say explosive on offense when they scored 40 points or more like 6 times last year. But you know what I mean, more traditional with Mettenberg, being able to throw as opposed to Jordan Jefferson. Just they beat people by just wearing them out. They killed them on defense. They scored on defense, and
they
special
threw the
teams.
running backs at you, ran
Exactly,
it down your
and
throat,
just beat you into submission. It wasn't one of those, we're going to hang 40 points on you in the first half and then we coast the rest of the way. It was one of those, we score 21 on you in the first half and then you can't stop us when you know we're running the entire time in the second half. The crazy thing is they've got Spencer Ware, probably still listed as number 1 on their depth chart, but they've got that Ford guy, Blue, and Hilliard.
Yeah.
That the freshman last year that came on at the end. So, I mean, and they've got arguably they had one of the top 2 or 3 offensive lines in the country, and they're returning almost everybody.
Yeah. Then you got Odell Beckman, who's the wide receiver that was a true freshman last year, and I mean he gave Jonathan Banks fits. He was just I think he's going to be. I think he's just going to be good this year from that standpoint. But, yeah,
well, this depth chart does have Ford over Ware.
Yeah.
So either way.
Yeah,
I mean they've got 4 guys they can play. I mean, absolutely. They're going to beat you into submission with their running backs.
But if you look at LSU, that's one of their – I mean, that's their thing. They're always 3 deep in almost every position you're looking at them. It's not like there's just one guy. I mean, one guy goes down, you can replace him.
Yeah, I think the unanswered is what Mettenberger's going to be able to do. And
did he have a single snap last year?
No, he wasn't eligible, was he?
No, he was a transfer.
Okay.
And so he is. I mean, he's there. I mean, he's the guy, and supposedly he's got all the tools, but he's never ever played, so we've never seen him. And so
he got beat out by Murray at Georgia. Made some.
Wasn't very
errors in his behavior and judgments. At Georgia.
Probably tried to pick up a car and rip off bumpers and stuff
something
like that.
But no, he's the
Chemistry
man now.
class.
Yeah. But no, I think that it's going to rest on his shoulders. But here's the good thing: is it doesn't really have to. I mean, look what they did last year. Nobody will say that Jarrett Lee was just a stud quarterback, and they won with him too. Yeah. So I think they can win without a quarterback, and having a good quarterback is just icing on the cake for them. And the bottom line is their season's going to come down to Alabama and Arkansas.
And the other thing,
and I really don't even think Arkansas nearly as much as they were last year.
I think the other thing that you got to look at is that LSU has had to basically live every day, probably in all of their workouts, about that national championship game because they played so poorly and were just dominated by Alabama. So they've had to live that down for however long it is. So that could be a pretty motivating factor where you've got Alabama, with 7 people going on defense in the first 30 picks and all this kind of stuff. I mean, a little bit of complacency possibly. So I think LSU is going to be a little bit hungry. But the way that they play, LSU, Miles is kind of one of those loosey-goosey guys, a little bit offbeat, and it really plays in the way those LSU athletes are. They're kind of free-spirited with Honey Badger and all that type of stuff. It played really well for them last year until they kind of got punched in the mouth and they weren't able to respond. And I think this year I just see them as a pretty dominant team. But I just think it's still going to come down to them and Bama. And Bama's the type of team that I think if you catch them in the first 3 games of the year, you're going to have a better shot at beating them. I think Bama's going to get better as the year goes on, just like they always do. So I think by the time LSU and Bama actually meet, it's going to be interesting.
Another thing
that game's in Baton Rouge, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing they've got going for them is I mean, they've got arguably one of the best kickers in that Drew Alleman guy coming back. He's a senior this year. And unbelievably, Brad Wing's a sophomore.
Yeah.
The guy, I mean, talk about how much pup he got. He was the first player ever to get a touchdown called back for celebrating, a punter. That would have been
that was a crazy stat that in the Arkansas game when they were playing Arkansas, which was the last game of the year before they went to the before they went to the championship game, that they had given up less than 6 total yards of return. So basically, it was an average of 4 inches per return, like returnable punt. So he was such a weapon because he was an absolute, he could angle kick it. He could put the hang time. Basically, you just punted it, and that was, just worked right into their hands with their defense. And
wasn't that Arkansas game? Didn't Arkansas take a lead on them early?
And up until like midway through the second quarter,
it was like 14 to nothing or something like that, and then
they just ran it down their throats.
Yeah, and then didn't Honey Badger got a touchdown or did something big? Yeah, that's just. I think that LSU's just. They're not sneaking up on me this year.
I mean, their defensive line. I mean, outside of maybe South Carolina and Florida. And you can throw Georgia in there as well because, they've got Jarvis Jones or whatever. But, South Carolina with their defensive front with Devin Taylor and Clowney, and then, of course, Florida. But LSU, Sam Montgomery, Mingo. They got the kid that's the true sophomore that was the big tackle on like Anthony Johnson or something like that. Yeah. Just huge defensive front that just gets pressure like you wouldn't believe. So they're just going to be tough.
Well, and we're talking about LSU a lot, but one thing that we have to talk about, and I think you guys hit on it, was Alabama and how they start off. They played Penn State last year, and Penn State was not the team everybody thought they were at the beginning of the season. Everybody thought that was going to be a much better matchup than it really was for Alabama. But this year, or at least in the past, to me, it seems like Alabama always scheduled easily that first 3 games. This year it's not the case. They start with Michigan.
Well, see, Alabama's always played that tough game. They went to, when Saban got there, they're one of the first ones to be in that Chick-fil-A game, and they just went and destroyed Clemson when nobody expected it, if you remember that, like 4 or 5 years ago. And so they played in that game early, and of course they did the rivalry with Penn State. They did that, they were in Tuscaloosa, and then they visited them back last year. But that Michigan game.
And then they play Western. Okay, we're going to give them that. But then they turn around and play Arkansas.
Yeah.
So Alabama's got 2 tough matchups.
Western's pretty good.
Yeah, there we go. Compared to where they were 3 years ago, they are.
Yeah.
It's all relative, but they really have 2 tough matchups for Alabama in the first 3 weeks. And I'm not saying that they're going to lose either one of those, but it's not that cakewalk kind of games that they had.
Yeah, I'm interested to watch that Michigan game because I watched, Mississippi State played Michigan in the Gator Bowl 2 years ago, and that was, of course, Rodriguez's last game.
Right.
And they were still some flux of he was actually going to have the job, but Denard Robinson, if you remember that game, they jumped up 14-0 on State, and it was 14-14, really quick, and then State just rattled off and ended up winning 52-14 because Robinson got hit a bunch and he just got off, But supposedly this kid is, it's 2 years later, it's a Brody Hoke, and I still have the tendency to think that he's going to get popped a couple of times, which at his size, creates a big issue. And so I'm anxious to see that. But Michigan people and some of the national guys are, talking about how explosive he is, that he's on. He can be a difference maker. But that's going to be a tough game, and I think that definitely will set the tone for. LSU's got Washington coming into Baton Rouge.
Week 2.
I just think they're just going to blow the ever-living snot off of them.
And in Washington, since the mid-'90s, haven't been a player, really.
Yeah, but they got Sarkisian now, and so they got the,
We'll say they're better, but, it's like a mid- to low-level SEC team. Nobody's going to give them a chance to beat Alabama or, beat LSU, are they?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, so, even though it's not, a Western Kentucky, it's still – it's still not a matchup that anybody's scared of to see on the schedule if you're an LSU fan. Now, I guess we can go on and go through the schedule since we're talking about those.
Yeah, I mean, I got them winning the first. I mean, I hate to skip around. I got them winning the first 3 games against North Texas, Washington, and Idaho.
Yes.
I'm
with you on that.
I mean, those are because the only game that's going to be, anything there is Washington and Washington. Yeah. If it was in Washington, I guess we could talk about it a little bit, but I think Washington's kind of lower level on the Pac-10.
And we've already looked. That's a night game. Isn't that the night? That's the night game. So we've already talked about a night game in Baton Rouge. How tough it is of a place to play. And to go back a second, we were talking about bulletin board material. Do you think Alabama now has more bulletin board material that they didn't show up on the USA Today preseason poll as number 1?
Well, actually,
being the defending national championship, and they're being ranked number 2 to the team they beat.
Well, the funny thing is they actually got more vote. They got more number 1 votes than LSU, and USC, who finished 3rd, got more number 1 votes than LSU. But LSU ended up getting a smaller. And basically, if you look at the total number, they barely got by Alabama in overall votes.
Yeah, by 4 points.
Yeah. So I mean, you're talking about they're pretty even matched. What I took out of the preseason poll was 1 and 2, or Alabama, LSU, however you want to put them. USC right there as number 3. 4 was Oklahoma, who I think has the easiest road to the national championship game, but Oklahoma always loses to somebody they're not supposed to. And then 5th, I believe, is Oregon.
Correct.
So what it tells me is that in a year that people want the SEC not to make it to the national championship game, this preseason poll tells me that if you're Pac-10 or Pac-12 and you're an SEC, whoever wins those 2 conferences is probably going to line up unless an Oklahoma or a Florida State maybe runs the complete table and goes through their championship.
Well, I mean,
teams.
Not only that, you look at the top 10, 5 of the 10 teams are SEC programs. I mean, number 6 is Georgia, number 9 is South Carolina, number 10 is Arkansas.
Yeah, and if Arkansas had their head coach, they would have been in the top 5 because they would be considered having top 5 talent. There's just, they would, I think, be considered as having not even a top 25 coach now in John L. Smith. I mean, you don't know if that dude's just going to go off the handle or not. So, I mean, that's really discounting Arkansas from a talent standpoint to 10. It's crazy. So, yeah, I mean.
Well, and we talked about that when we were, and I had Matt McBride, who Drew knows knows everything that goes on in the state of Arkansas. And what I posed the question to him was about Arkansas is controversy aside, it's not so much that, it's what you lost with or what you lost by having John L. Smith is the in-game coaching. Because Petrino was great at the in-game coaching inside Arkansas. Whether you want to discount his off-the-field actions or not, he probably won them 2 or 3 games just by his coaching decisions. And what does that translate to in John L. Smith era? Or I wouldn't call it an era since it's only going to be a 1-year stop for him unless he has just a tremendous season. He's gone. But, there's 2 or 3 games there that are going to be close that Arkansas potentially can lose this year because of the coaching. So I could see exactly why they go from 5 to 10.
Yeah. And, I mean, I think they're still behind LSU and Alabama. I mean, I still think if you line up those teams today, they're not winning those games with the coaching matchups head to head. I just don't think I don't think you can actually do it. So, but 5 teams in the top 10 is pretty stout.
You look like you want to say something?
No, I same thing. Well, I know we're talking about Arkansas, but they still have to play Alabama and LSU. I mean, it's just broken record. I mean, that's what's tough. That's the tough thing about LSU. They still have to play Arkansas and they have to play Alabama, but I do think they're just a little. You're right. If Petrino's still there, then I'm saying, "Ooh, this is just a tough road right here for LSU."
A tough road to hoe.
Yeah, but I'm like, I think it's just a negative. Not so much that it is on the field coaching. I mean, I think that's a big part of it, but I think it's just a negative on the program. I mean, You're going in just so excited, saying, "Look, man, we had an unbelievable year, our best year ever last year." Now, unfortunately, we had to play.
Arkansas,
we had to play Alabama and LSU, and we're going to play them again. But hey, we're ready this time. And now they're like, all that's taken away because their coach likes to sleep with women and drive motorcycles and not tell anybody. So I think it's just a negative outlook on their program, and now they're going to be.
I think the coaching that Petrino does, I think what most people, I think he's a good game. He's such a great, he prepares so well for the game, but what you hear about Petrino is just the attention to detail and practice. He's a very huge, he's a very huge disciplinarian, which is kind of strange with what actually went on with him. But if you see him, I mean, he is complete. I mean, you could see him last year when the backup quarterback is. Makes an errant throw. He's in his face. He's trying to, he's just got this intensity that, on the practice field is where you win the game. And I think that's where they're really going to miss it, because I don't think you can bring that back, even though his brother's there and has been involved with Paul or whatever. But it's going to be, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with adversity if they do have some early in the season. But back to LSU, sorry.
That's okay. Well, I'll go back to the original question that started us down this rat hole. Where does that put Alabama with them being ranked number 2?
Well, I don't think. I mean,
do you think Saban's using that as bulletin board material?
Saban's going to use anything he can, because the last time they won a national championship, they didn't play that well the next year, and so he's already used that as an opportunity to say, hey, we've already been here before, and he's going to grab anything he can to show that. But I don't really know, I mean, I think you got a lot of people at Alabama that are hungry to actually show that, hey, I can play too. I was behind these 7 guys, and, I was a 5-star, and now it's my turn. And, so I think there's a little bit of motivation there. But there's something to go along with LSU having to sit with a 21-0 beatdown for the whole summer.
All right, so
out.
We're going to get back to the schedule. So everybody's giving them 3-0 start, but then they come into week 4 and play Auburn.
They're going to beat Auburn down.
Any issues there? Yeah.
I got to win
they're
against
beat
Auburn,
them senseless.
And then Towson. I'm pretty sure everybody's got a win for them against Towson, right?
What is Towson? Are they like.
What's that, Shane? Shane's got Towson winning this game.
What's the money line on that?
I think we've all said that they're going to win at Florida.
The board. Yeah,
it's off the board.
I've got them beating Florida as well. So that's 6-0. We've all got them starting 6-0.
South Carolina's a tough game because it kind of fits around that same time that Alabama showed up there 2 years ago. Kind of in the middle of the year, blah, blah, blah. So
I think they'll lose that game. I'm going to give them a loss right there just because I don't think they're going to start off 7-0.
Yeah.
I don't see where else they're going to win. But I think South Carolina is going to be one of those teams. I think they're going to have 1 or 2 losses that they shouldn't have.
Right.
But I think they're going to. I mean, they're a good team.
Yeah.
And if Lattimore is healthy, which
when's the last time LSU lost at home?
I think that obviously that's a tough place to play, and you could pull up a stat that might make what I'm about to say just sound stupid. But I don't think it's just unheard of them losing at home.
No. I mean, Miles has had a very good record there at home, but I can't say anything because we've lost like 23 in a row or some stupid number.
So what do you got, Blair? Do you got them winning that game? Or
I got a loss.
So you got South Carolina as well. What about you, Shane?
And that's probably going to be a day game because CBS will have the pick, right, of the first game.
Yeah. Who is it?
Your only other options: Alabama, Missouri, or South Carolina at LSU.
That'd probably be South Carolina LSU.
Yeah, so they won't have a night game in the swamp. So that's
or in the.
I mean.
Yeah, Tiger Stadium.
Yeah.
Death
so
Valley.
What do you got there, Shaner?
Yeah, I'm gonna give them a win.
All right, good. I don't want us all to say a loss. That'd be kind of weird to go there. So you got them 7-0 at Texas A&M. I think they're better than Texas A&M. I think they win that game.
Yes, I agree.
All right, then the big one.
I think they get the W against Alabama.
You think so?
Yeah, I do. Just because it's at home, and that's kind of the sting of sitting on it forever. And of course, I see them winning Mississippi State and Ole Miss.
See, I've got them. I thought I would be on a limb there. I think they're beating Alabama as well. Shane, you got Alabama or you got LSU?
I have Alabama losing. I think LSU has 1 loss in them.
All right, so you've got. We all got them at 8-1 now.
I've got them at 8-0. or 9-0.
Oh, you've got okay. I got you.
I've got them winning winning
All right, against Alabama. You've
Yeah,
got
'cause
them
it's-
over Alabama.
Yeah.
All right, Mississippi State. I think they beat Mississippi State. Blair, you said you think they beat Mississippi
Yeah.
State. What about you, Shane?
Yes, that's not the game they lose. Sorry.
10-0. 10-0. All right.
Yeah.
I've got them beating Ole Miss as well. And Blair, you said you do, and Shane, I'm sure that you've got them beating them. So you got them 11-0. We both got them 10-1. I think they lose at Arkansas.
Yes.
I got a loss on that one.
That's what I think too. I think that's their only loss.
I think they win at Arkansas. I think they end up 11-1 with.
So y'all both have them at 11-1. I got them 10-2, which the over/under is 10.5 wins. So that's right on it. I would venture to bet the under if I had to bet that.
Yeah.
Because 10.5 is so hard to get to, but I would stay off. I would lay off on that one as well. Y'all both, would y'all take the over on that on 10.5? That's what
I'm
you
going
got?
to take the over because I think LSU possibly stumbles in that first 8 games somewhere, and then I think it is, in BCS format, it's you basically have a playoff game the rest of the way. So I think they're kind of in dire straits the rest of the way to.
So that
get
means
there.
y'all are both predicting a SEC championship or SEC title game for LSU.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing.
I hate to say it, but they might lose it at 11-1. They could potentially lose it.
You think? Yeah. So that means you're thinking Arkansas.
Because if Arkansas loses to Alabama early in the season, runs the table and beats
then
LSU,
Arkansas, yeah, Arkansas
they would have identical records, 3-way records, basically.
Yeah. But they're going to lose at start.
Alabama's probably going to lose to Tennessee though.
in Arkansas. So.
Please.
So you've got Alabama already losing 3 games.
Not
put it
Alabama,
this way.
Arkansas.
Arkansas.
I've got Tennessee going 13-0. Just kidding.
Book it.
13-0 and then not playing in the national championship game. Just foregoing it. That's all I got on LSU.
I was trying to find the Death Valley record, but I can't find it. Not that short a time. I'm not a Google expert. So we all think. Recap that for me. I'm sorry. I was trying to find Death Valley.
I've got 10-2, and y'all both have 11-1 for LSU.
So you're taking the under.
I would take the under if I had to bet. I wouldn't bet it though.
And you're getting odds that way too.
No, I'm laying them big time, -140. So.
Oh.
So the smart money. Sorry, the money right now is going on the under.
There's no smart money when it comes to Vegas, is there?
But that's one that I would choose to not participate in.
Yeah.
You don't have to bet.
That's sometimes the best bet, right?
Yeah, it's probably almost always the best bet, especially when it's me involved.
Well, that's our 2-a-day coverage of LSU in Florida. So next week will either be Alabama, UT, or
Is it Kentucky and Ole Miss?
no, we've already done Kentucky.
Kentucky, Mississippi State,
Who's with Kentucky?
me.
It was
Mississippi
Mississippi
State?
State.
That's
Okay.
our permanent.
Okay.
So Ole Miss is Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So we've already done that one.
So we haven't done Mississippi State yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, we did Kentucky, Mississippi State.
We've already done Kentucky?
Yes.
Who's the other one that we're doing?
We have Alabama,
In Tennessee.
And Tennessee.
And then you had
South Carolina,
South Carolina, and I think you actually were doing Arkansas.
No, we've
No.
already done Arkansas.
Okay,
Missouri.
the
No,
Missouri,
is it
because
Missouri?
they're going to be the new. That's their new. They're not going to be playing them this year as their permanent.
We'll have to look back at it.
I think it's
that's right. South Carolina, Missouri.
We've already.
We
co-
could say. Why don't we say the South Carolina, Missouri, and to the last one?
I just want to think we've already covered Missouri.
I think we have to.
Well, I think then you're doing Arkansas.
No, we've
No.
already done Arkansas for sure. Regardless, I can assure you that we've lost.
The other
No,
team
no,
is
it's
USC.
Texas A&M.
Tex, there we go.
Because that's the one. I don't know
Yeah.
why we're saying
Missouri,
Missouri
they're
is
the
they're the same
same- both in
division.
the East.
Yeah.
It's like, I
Texas
know we did
A&M
Missouri, 'cause me and you
South
did
Carolina and
Missouri.
Texas A&M, which is the 2 furthest points possible in the conference, are now permanent rivals.
I got you.
Even
So-
though they're not this year, they'll finish up.
Next week is either Alabama, UT, or A&M, USC. So
Works for me.
it depends on scheduling for which one we end up able to do. So,
I can make the last one, not next week.
I hear you.
so with that, I guess it's that time of the podcast where it's time for open mic, and we'll let Blair start because I know Drew's probably got some good things pinned up since it's been a few weeks since he's been on.
Who knows, man?
I'm excited to be heading on Wednesday to Charleston, South Carolina, to Kiowa Island for the PGA Championship.
What's your? Are you watching some of the golf, or what are you?
I'll be there
for all of it.
Yep. Well, we're going to be going.
I'm
going to be going Thursday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Friday. I'm choosing to spend the day with my wife and
did you catch that?
And Bennett
being chosen to
and go to the beach and do some Charleston fun stuff. But I'll be there Thursday. Mark is actually my brother-in-law is actually there right now, so they're going to go all week. So I'm gonna.
He's watching practice rounds tomorrow. Is he?
Yeah, I think they're going 1 or 2 days before Thursday. So, but
that'll
it's going to be awesome.
Well, people, if they want to see who you're following on Twitter.
Yes. At Blair Smyly, Smyly.
We're going to get you on Twitter.
I'm going to start doing it. I've actually I got a new book that's going to demystify Twitter for me that I'm about to embark on.
Is it Twitter for Dummies?
No, it's I forgot the name of it, but I got a couple of social networking books that I need to read to kind of help me kind of understand it a little bit better. And
when you figure it out, let me know, because I need all the help I can get.
Understand.
Drew?
I want to talk really quickly about an Olympic sport that I've created that I'm pretty good at, and it's avoiding finding out the results of what's happening. This is ridiculous. I feel so out of touch. I'm not listening to sports talk radio because they're idiots and they just go, oh, Ryan Lochte came in third. I mean, just... Man, I hate the fact that stuff's not live, and I hate the fact, I get that the Olympics can't be in Atlanta every year, but I hate the fact that it's so much more fun when you don't know what's happening.
Yeah, and I don't understand, to your point, if you're 30 and under, basically you demand the information immediately, so I don't understand why just showing it and then doing replays in the evening would suffice.
Well, it's all about they want those ratings in prime time, and so the advertisers. But it's one of those things, and I know I can watch it online. I can get the app and watch it.
But we all have day jobs.
Yeah, but I'm
watching
paddling kids, in the middle of the day when like tonight, like right now, it kills me because I know for the fact that somebody's won the 100 meters right now. But I got to avoid radio. Like I got to go listen to pop music the entire way home because I can't listen to any kind of sports talk. So I'm excited. The Olympics have been wonderful. I don't know if y'all have been watching it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, every night I'm watching it. And the gymnastics probably my favorite, which I didn't think it would be, but that's just fun stuff. The girls gymnastics has been just incredibly fun to watch, and the swimming's been great. But now we're on a track and field, and hoping that tonight that I have no idea if he even made the finals, but hoping Justin Gatlin can represent Tennessee again. This time, maybe a little less drugged up, get another gold.
Now, you bring up a point why NBC is doing a tape delay and not showing the coverage live. But what this has really showed me is that with Twitter, with being able to stream it live, wouldn't say most, but a number of individuals have been able to see what the results are. But if you look at the numbers, the tape delay viewing is still up.
Oh, yeah.
So there is a huge, if anything, what that says to me is there's nothing wrong with them showing everything live on TV and then doing a tape delay recap like they're doing with all the fluff stories and everything else, and you're still going to get those eyeballs. I don't see why they can't do both, because all they're going to be able to do is capture daytime viewers as well, because you would have huge ratings during the daytime where otherwise you've got Dr. Phil. I mean, who cares what he's got to say right now, or Oz, but you're able to capture those eyeballs, and you're getting money from advertisers on both sides of the ball. So I don't see how NBC.
I would have to believe that if they showed it live, you would have a much smaller viewership at night. I'll go ahead and tell you this. On days that if I could watch it during the day and watch it live, then I probably wouldn't watch it again at night. I'd watch, a baseball game or something like that. Tonight, I'll go ahead and tell you I'd watch the football game.
Right.
I'm pumped about that. New Orleans and Arizona. I mean, that's...
And the Redskins playing?
Maybe the Redskins, too. It might be a three-way battle. I don't know who's playing. Anyway, NFL Network, I mean, I'm excited about watching that, and, if it is the Redskins, you get RG3.
RG3.
Is he gonna get suited up? I mean, ooh, it's exciting football, man.
Well, I mean, you may be right, but what it says to me is that there's something out there that can work, because a lot of these people are streaming. I would love to see the streaming numbers NBC's doing right now, and you're able to get those eyeballs, and you might lose a few viewers, but what most people, I don't know if most people enjoy this, but you get people involved and bought to these individuals because of those fluff pieces, where you really learn their backstory, and you're making grown men cry watching, the struggles these folks have made to get to where they are. You wouldn't get that when you were seeing this stuff live. You could save that to the fluff piece and show the tape delay, and still be able to get that viewer involved and engaged. I don't know. I guess that's why they don't pay me to be a marketer.
Well, more importantly, we've got 4 years to somehow
figure it out.
No, somehow get media passes so we can go cover the Olympics.
Where is it at? It's in Rio de Janeiro.
Rio
right?
de Janeiro.
That'd be a solid place to go.
And if SECSRT gets to go, I call dibs on one of the media passes.
I don't know if my wife would allow me to go to Rio.
Well, I can assure you that
she would have to go
I
with
would get
me.
divorced to go to Rio to watch the Olympics. So maybe and then maybe get married again afterwards. Who knows? Another bachelor party?
That'd be
All
awesome.
in?
I was at the first one. I don't know if I could make a second one.
Yeah,
of those.
you could. Well, Shane, and that's all I got. I don't have no movies. A lot of school, man. I've been busy. It's hard. It's hard being back to being a student.
Now, do you have plans to go to the movies next week?
Do you have plans to go to the movies next week? Something good coming out?
The Will Ferrell, Zach.
Oh, the campaign movie?
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind seeing that. Maybe I might do that next week.
It just seems right up your alley.
Yeah, I think it'll be good.
I think so as well. I guess it's my time to finish up this roundtable and put this podcast in the books in under an hour and a half.
We're fools, man.
I did a weekend trip to Chattanooga this weekend to take my daughter, who starts kindergarten in a couple weeks, to the aquarium. And what it really tells me is that it's just hell taking two small children anywhere.
Yeah.
A 5 and a 2-year-old. It's a full-time job to keep up with whatever they're into that day and
make sure they don't end up in the aquarium.
Yeah, well,
you look up and they're like, swimming with a stingray, and you're like, oh, what happened?
Oh, thank God I heard them say they took the stingers out of those things. But they're nonstop. Now they had a blast, and it was all for them. So we made a full day of it. Went down and let her swim in the hotel pool. She got to stay in a hotel and loved it, and did that whole vacation thing for a mini vacation for just a night trip to Chattanooga, and then went to the Discovery Adventure Center or something like that, just a place that's made for kids to destroy things. And
I love staying in hotels. Do y'all like staying in hotels?
Oh, yeah.
I could live in a hotel, I think.
I've been doing it a lot lately, and I miss my bed. I really do.
I hate my bed right now, but and it's a new one too. But I love hotels. They clean up after you. You can go. You just walk somewhere. I mean, if they sometimes have like cookies downstairs.
Yeah.
They'll bake cookies for you. They got a little drink machine.
I'll tell you what, Chattanooga. I hadn't been to Chattanooga in a while. It'd been or stayed there. Obviously just passing through. But the last decade they've done some really nice things at Chattanooga, and it was a really cool place. And we went to a wedding and kind of did the same thing. But we're able to go to some. Got some local breweries. Nice little restaurant spots, in downtown Chattanooga. So it was a pretty cool spot.
Yeah, no, we had a really good time. I was ready for bed when we got home last evening, and it was still light outside. So, and with that, guys, we're going to call this podcast done.